Hello, my name is Anjani, and today I'm going to be reading your astrology chart. So here it is with a bunch of notes and scribbles. The things I've highlighted are things that I'm just going to talk about in this short video. So, first of all, I want to say thank you. I love to read astrology, number one. And when there's somebody who inspires me, or if I get a feeling, when you interact with somebody or interacting through YouTube videos, which I watch of yours, we'll have some sort of a feeling. And I like to understand what it is for me that I'm feeling. And through reading your astrology chart, it helps me more to understand myself and gives me clarity. So, and it's also just fun and useful. So I hope you find this at least entertaining, if not useful also. So before I start reading the chart, I always like to call in sacred space. So for me, calling in sacred space means I'm going to just call in the elements of earth for grounded support, calling in water for clear, reflective ability, and clean, clear emotions. I like to call in air for the inspiration, for hearing the sort of intuition that comes through, and also fire for action, inspiration, and being able to take action. I also like to give thanks for all the ways the ancient ones have kept track of time through all the standing stone temple sites, the ways that they've made astrology really be alive and for us to be able to access and use the information. I also like to call in my higher self and your higher self, asking that this information comes through in a way that is useful, joyful, and really to bring out what is most beneficial for both of us, really. So, here we go. We're going to start off by looking at the lineage. The lineage in astrology we get from the moon and from the south node. So the south node is here, and we look at the house position. So we would call this the Capricorn job, because it's in the 10th house, in the Libra tribe. The moon's in Libra. So what the lineage describes to us is a skill set or tools that you've already mastered. So you might think of this like a degree that you got, a long time ago. And this is actually before birth. So it's like if you've had kids, or just been around kids, that each child will have their own traits and things that they're good at that we don't understand why. They're just naturally good at something. And we can get some idea about that from the moon and the south node. So the Libra tribe, looking at the moon, this is going to be, if now I'm talking tribes. So this would be the tribe or the group of people who were, so it's a householder. It's going to be concerned with the way we do relationships, the way we are relational. So this is your specialty, being able to have conscious, co-creative relationships, partnerships. And so initially my first thinking is when I watch your videos, I do feel very validated, or it's not hierarchical. You're not like I'm the teacher and you're the student. It is very cohesive, and it is like a sharing of information. So the Libra tribe would be saying that gives me the idea that your skill set is around conscious co-creative partnerships. And just a real life example, as a kid, so you've got the Capricorn job. So this is interesting. because the nodal position tells us that within that tribe of being relational, you also would have the specialty of being the boss, of being the tribal elder. So going back to my feeling about your videos, even though there is this cohesive circle, it's like we're all at the table, a round table, and you're not sitting at the, on the podium. It's like we're in circle together. That's the feeling. But you are the elder. You are this is your material that we're learning. And, really being the leader and setting the structure for the next 7 generations, or for the next generations. We don't have to say 7 generations. So, real life example from the lineage. This would be like a little boy who is in the family dynamic, whatever that might be, who is a mediator, who is mostly concerned with the flow of energy in the family or within that unit, validating everybody within the family. So a lot of times people with a Libra moon did end up being the kid who is sort of the peacemaker in the family and keeping the peace among the circle, the unit. With the specialty of the South Node, we could say that also having a leadership role in a way, always having a good plan. My daughter has some Capricorn, and it shows up as being very, she does have the good plan for what to do for family vacations, and for, if it's my birthday, she has like a list of things that we're going to do, and it's a structure. It's setting the structure. So that's the lineage. From the lineage, what we want to do is go over and do more of the rising sign. So for you, this really surprised me. My good friend, who's also way into your work, he actually messages you on Facebook a lot. His name is Eduardo. He said, oh yeah, definitely, that makes total sense. It didn't make sense to me, but the rising sign for you is in Scorpio, which I'm sure you are familiar with that because your sun is there also. So we want to move from the lineage to the rising. So we look at the rising sign, and then we go to the North Node, house position, 4th house. So we would call this your new school, what you're learning about in this lifetime, the Cancer job in the Scorpio tribe. So this would say that in a lot of astrological writing and work, they call this the life purpose, the life intention. The North Node is what we're going toward. The rising sign is what we're rising into, what we are becoming a master of. And we have our entire life to do it. So we're constantly learning. And, when you learn how to walk, you fall down. As we're learning, we make mistakes. So let's look at the Scorpio tribe first. So for Scorpio as an ascendant, some of the mistakes, I love this. I'm laughing because I have a client who comes in and he has got a lot of Scorpio as well as Scorpio rising. And last week, he's about almost 60, and he said that, oh, I just got wasted the other night, and he's really fancy. He's an architect and very proper kind of guy. And I mentioned to him when he's talking about like it was so fun, but he doesn't remember it. And the thing about Scorpio as an ascendant is that you won't know how much is enough until you really know how much is too much. So going overboard on everything pretty much. That's the sort of what my teacher Daniel Jamario calls a honest mistake. Because Scorpio wants to feel the maximum aliveness, the maximum potency of life force energy surging through their body. So whatever it is that gets that feeling of aliveness, Scorpio is going to do it excessively. And I'm still not sure if there ever is because I have Taurus rising, which is on the other end of your ascendant, that's the descendant. And for Taurus rising, there is an end. There is like, okay, I know that 2 glasses of wine gives me a headache, so I stay with one. And that's the example my teacher uses for that. But for Scorpio, they really are learning to walk the edge, to be an edge. They're edgy, and that was the thing I had asked Eduardo about you, from what he's perceiving of you. Is he edgy? Like, I don't get that, but I don't know. I mean, and Eduardo's like, oh yeah, he's super intense. And so, maybe I need to watch a few more videos, or, sometimes watching the interviews where you're going back and forth with somebody, I can get a different impression. But this is what Scorpio rising is about, is there's intensity. There's a raw, alive, passionate edginess to a Scorpio rising. Some of the mistakes I will mention here, sourcing energy from people, places, and things, like what I was mentioning about my friend who's like drinking and feeling, that means he's sourcing his energy from something other than the original source. So when we're talking about sourcing energy from, from the above, from the below, tapping into the energy of the earth, of the sky, and learning how to run that through your body, which I know that you're doing because I hear it over and over in your videos, which is fabulous, because that's what you're learning about as a Scorpio rising. Looking at the North Node now, this is what I was picking up on, is this sort of sweetness. That's what I always say. I was like, oh, he's so sweet. I love the way you talk. There's a melody to your voice, which in Ayurveda and in Chinese medicine, we can see a sweetness. There's like a lullaby, sort of a singing, it moves. It's beautiful. I love it. So we look at the 4th house being like Cancer. The nurturing, loving. We call this a good parent, good mother, good father. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be parenting children. Oftentimes it is parenting a project. What you're birthing, what you are nurturing in the sense of projects. So seeing something through, from the seed through the fruition of whatever that is. And there is a sweetness to that. There is a very loving, nurturing essence to that. So from the lineage, we move into the new school, and we always honor the moon. So we're always going to honor you for having those skills of conscious, co-creative partnerships. And we're going to see you as your Scorpio rising. The next part is the masculine and feminine. So this is a relationship material, which is my personal favorite. I love this section of astrology. So you have your Mars over here in Capricorn. So for a man, Mars describes the sword you carry. I think that was Carl Jung who talked about, as archetypes, masculine and feminine aren't always going to be men fixing cars and women painting their fingernails. So for you, Capricorn is the sword you carry. So those things that are, setting the structure, setting a foundation, starting this school, what you're doing, that honors the Mars position from my perspective, of course, Mars in Capricorn. So what I like to do is take Mars with the ascendant and do alchemy. So we're combining those, the energy of Capricorn as an archetype, who is the tribal elder. This is actually known as the circle of grandmothers because, thinking about the circle of grandmothers, they're in charge, they're running stuff, and they are asking, is this going to feed the next 7 generations? Then mixing that with your rising, which is in Scorpio, we have a flavor for you as an emerging god, the form of the god that is emerging, which is really, this is like the shaman, elder. So Scorpio, often we can get the shaman, the mystic, because you're sourcing energy. You're learning how to source energy, run that through your body, and set a structure from that. So this is the emerging god. Next thing we're going to look at is the emerging goddess, or the form of the feminine that you most wish to connect with, which ultimately is you. It's your inner feminine. And you have your Venus in Sagittarius. And then we do the same thing by taking the descendant. So over here, who am I? The first house investigates who am I? And you have a lot of stuff in here. So then over here is who are you? And we have Jupiter over here. So this gives this a really interesting, I'll talk about that in just a minute. It gives it a really interesting kind of flavor. But what we're going to do is take Venus in Sagittarius, looking at the form of the feminine that you most wish to connect with. This is the form of the goddess who, it's like Athena, she is, she's sovereign. She is questing for truth, expansion, evolution of consciousness. She is constantly on a quest. And I can see this in you. I can see that you're not repressing your inner feminine, which a lot of people do. And so they project it outward. But your partner, I don't know who she is, I've heard you talk about her, may represent this, or you may see her this way, that she is evolutionary and expanding consciousness. And that is what, that I have an image of in my mind with those long boots and she's out, she's going not where no man has gone before. That's more of an Aquarius thing. But she's trekking, she's going through the land, and she's learning new things, meeting new people, always it's a fire, it's hot and can burn itself out at times because of having so much desire for truth. So we mix the Venus with the Taurus. So this gives her a sexy flair, because not that Sagittarius in itself is already kind of sexy to me, because I find that sexy, I should say, that it's searching for truth. I love that. Not everybody does. So I should say my form of sexy. So we got Sagittarius with Taurus, and Taurus is very bodied, very embodied. So she's questing and she's in her body, and her body looks good. She smells good. She takes care of her hair and her skin, the adornments. This is a Taurus thing. It is an Aphrodite archetype. So she enjoys beauty for her own sake. She's probably beautiful. And this is your form of the feminine. So likely you will be attracted to those types of women, but ultimately that is your inner feminine. And so what I usually give for the advice here, which I don't think you need, because I feel like from what I see, you embody that. The advice here is to feed that form of the feminine within yourself so that you are not having to project that outward. So that, so you would be, and you are, you are evolving consciousness, and you are, I don't know about the Taurus things, this whole axis of Scorpio and Taurus, I don't know about that. I don't have any perception of you enough. So let's look at that. Here, we call this the relationship axis. Like I said, over here, who am I? And then who are you? And this is directly related to a relationship. Your relationship axis. So when we ask the question, why on earth would I ever want to be in a relationship? Your answer is because it charges my batteries. It, brings the life force. This relationship is energizing. This is the path of the Tantrika, the path of Tantra. So it wouldn't be like, oh, I'm married to my best friend. This pathway doesn't mean that you wouldn't marry your best friend, but it is, I'm with this person who, turns me on. That's the important thing here. And also because you have Jupiter, this is a really interesting placement for Jupiter to be right there on the descendant in the seventh house, because the idea that Jupiter is also expanding. It makes things bigger. And when it's in the seventh house, the way it feels to me is sort of like the relationships with a partner or a lover. And I'm saying relationships because with Jupiter there, it's like that, wanting to have complete freedom and wanting to have complete closeness, and kind of going around in a circle on that, like wanting freedom, wanting closeness. And the relationships that you have with women or that you've had throughout your life will and I'm saying this from what I'm sensing, will have or would have been beneficial and expanding. So not only expanding your sense of self in the relationship, but just overall. I mean, if you're thinking back in your life, like every love relationship that you've had, and I guess that's true for a lot, maybe not, I don't know. But I'm sure that you can ask yourself, how much have you grown and learned and even maybe furthered your work, your work out in the world and your inner work, because Jupiter expands things. So that is, I mean, and of course, everything I've said here in the short 20 minutes, there are a million ways to say it and a million ways to expand on that, like Jupiter would like to do. But I'm going to move on. So next thing we'll look at is contribution to the world, or midheaven. The midheaven is what we see first. It's like if you're walking down the street in a crowded place and nobody knew you, it would sort of be what stands out the most. And given the idea that everybody wishes to contribute in some sort of way, this would show us the way in which you wish to contribute. And you have Leo on the midheaven, exactly with your south node. So that gives it a really interesting, I mean, the Pluto is there also. And this is something that Pluto is also trying to Venus. Lots of interesting things here. But I'm going to keep it simple and basic for today just because of, I don't know how interested you are in this. I'm really interested, but I'll keep it to the basic four corners reading and not get too much into anything else. So the midheaven in Leo would say that the way that you're contributing to the world is through self-love, through being radiant, full of yourself in a good way. Leo is a self-interest sign. So it's interested in itself. And it's beautiful because when you're radiant and full of yourself, those of us around you have an opportunity to match, to you know what I mean? To you're not pushing us off of your center stage. You're like, come in, do your yoga, eat raw foods, get in the earth and, fill yourself up with this life force energy. So that's Leo on the midheaven. You have Pluto there. I will just mention that quickly because Pluto on the midheaven is interesting because Pluto is an underworld initiator. It's a lot like Scorpio. So bringing out what is hidden. The word occult, hidden, the mysteries of life. What is underground, what's buried that we don't know. You're bringing that out and putting it right up on top. So it's on the midheaven, Pluto on the midheaven. So you know who else had Pluto on the midheaven was Prince. I love Prince. His astrology chart it's on my YouTube channel. He was also bringing it up, talking about those things that were uncomfortable and bringing the shadow out to the surface. So from the home and roots, midheaven, we go down to the home and roots where you have the north node and you have Juno. The home and roots, you have Aquarius there. So typically we call this home and roots. I have been referring to it as the nest you emerge from because home has a whole bunch of ideas that aren't necessarily suitable for everybody. For you, because you have Aquarius on the home and roots, it's not a traditional home, it's eccentric. You can live out of a suitcase and not be bothered by that, you know? Aquarius on the home and roots would say that your home life would be eccentric, a little unusual. You don't care, you weren't thinking that you can't wait to have a white picket fence in middle America with, you know, the kids and the dog and one wife that's there forever. Like, that's not Aquarius on the home and roots. Aquarius on the home and root, not saying that it couldn't be that way, just that the main intention of Aquarius on the home and roots is more innovative and movable. So at night, the end of the night, when you're falling asleep, your heart being the home, I'm free. You know, that's the free electron of Aquarius. So, also Juno is there, 16 degrees. It's so funny because this is an exact opposition, midheaven, right with the North Node, 16 degrees. And then Juno, which tells us about marriage and love and commitment, is 16 degrees of the North Node. So this is really very interesting, and saying that perhaps that commitment or love relationship is part of your destiny. It is part of your, you know, where you're going to. And then the South Node, bringing your gifts. You know, when I was talking in the very beginning about the lineage, this is something that you've already mastered, bringing those gifts of what you've already mastered out to the way you're contributing to the world. So thank you for doing that. I really love you and your videos, and thank you so much for your work. I hope you enjoy this video, and please do ask any questions or give any feedback. I greatly appreciate it.